Okay, so a couple weeks ago, I uploaded a video going over the suspicious activity of Charlie Kirk's security crew. And I had some people in the comments asking why I didn't cover more of the aftermath of the shooting. So I'm going to follow up and go over more of the security crew's questionable antics, and also the camera crew who were just as suspicious as the security team. And I even spotted something from one of them I don't think anyone else noticed, and I suspect may have been working with the security crew. But first I have to go over what the security crew did to help make more sense of what I suspect that the camera crew may have done. It'll all tie in together at the end. Okay, so as I mentioned on my most recent video, the first thing that strikes me as odd is how easy it was for anyone to enter this event. As you can see, no tickets, no security, no metal detectors, nothing. And that's peculiar to me considering the amount of security Charlie had surrounding him during the event. If Charlie felt there was a big enough threat to warrant such heavy security while speaking, then why not have heavy security at the entrance as well? It just really doesn't make a lot of sense to me. But anyway, I wanted to include this footage here to give viewers an idea what it was like from a spectator's point of view to witness this event firsthand. And here you can see where Turning Point USA's tent is set up. So here's another member of Charlie's security crew who was standing behind the front of the guardrail. I didn't mention him on the first video because I was focusing more on the other members of the security crew who had not been talked about as much. But this guy may actually be the shadiest of all. The way he's standing there with a menacing grin seconds before Charlie was shot. And you'll see in a moment the motion he makes just as the gunshot goes off. I'll go ahead and show the clip, but just for the record, I am not saying this guy actually shot Charlie. I am saying the motion he makes when the gunshot is fired is extremely suspicious. And a lot of people suspect that he actually had a palm gun in his right hand that fired the shot. Now, before I show the clip, I am blocking out Charlie's body here because the last video I showed Charlie's body reaction to the shooting got age restricted and demonetized. But you can still see what the security crew were doing leading up to the shooting and directly following the shooting, as well as the camera crew I'll get to momentarily that I suspect may have possibly been working with this security guy here. Like I said, it's all going to tie in at the end. Alright, so let's go ahead and check out the first clip. Okay, so you can see Charlie is holding the microphone to quote his last words, counting or not counting gang violence. And then as soon as he puts the mic down is when he was shot. I'm going to play the clip at normal speed and then slow it down. Now keep your eye on this security guy and you'll notice he does something with his hand just as Charlie is shot.
You're not counting gang violence. Great. 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 Great.
Okay, so look between his ring and middle finger. It appears like he is holding something, and that is what people are saying may be a palm gun. And we'll go into a little more detail about palm guns, but first let's look at this slowed down.
This is what a palm gun looks like, and that's what they're alleging that guy had in. It looks like that little scope thing is coming in between these two fingers right here. That's what it looks like. Again, I'm not saying that's what happened. I'm saying this is a theory. And then he goes to pull up his sleeve, which is already pulled up past his bicep at the exact time Charlie Kirk gets shot.
Do you know how many mass shooters there have been in America over the last 10 years?
Counting or not counting gang violence.
Great.
So it looks like he's pretending to pull up his sleeve and he has a palm gun. That's what it looks like. And there's the bullet. That's what they're saying. Again, I'm not saying I cannot verify the veracity of these claims. I'm just showing you these are the theories that are out there.
Okay, I'm going to zoom in and slow it down and see if it does in fact look like an actual bullet or possibly something else. Let's check it out. Yes, there's definitely a strong case to be made here that does look like a bullet flying out of his hand. Of course, I am not saying anything is absolute, but that does appear to be a bullet, and I think at the very least warrants an investigation from the authorities. All I'm trying to do is present potential evidence for the authorities to investigate, and if the parties that I am putting on display are innocent, then an investigation will clear them of any wrongdoings.
He's staring down into nothingness. His left arm is slightly bent. He's now going to get ready to straighten that left arm. And if you notice that when he straightens that left arm, he also turns to look at Charlie for the very first time. At the same time that arm goes straight, he turns to acquire the target with his eyes. You notice he's starting to turn towards Charlie, somewhat with a kind of an evil grin on his face as well. And then you see the fist. You see that closed fist right there? That closed fist contains what's called a palm pistol or something similar. It's a device that fires a projectile.
So that's what a palm pistol looks like right there. Can you see that? Circular, it looks like a big watch, and then it's got a barrel right here. And then
like a zip gun.
And then the trigger is right there.
Either way, that's where the shot came from, guys. The shot came from right here. Right there. Let's take a look. Boom. There's the shot. Charlie Kirk then takes his place in the kingdom of God. Now watch that fist, guys. That palm pistol containing fist now is going down behind the left arm. Watch this region right here. This is where he's going to hide the palm pistol. You ready for this, guys? Watch this. You'll see his hand be shoved or shoving the palm pistol into that left tricep area. Right there, guys. Do you see that?
He's saying right here.
Right there, underneath his
the palm pistol is being hidden in that tricep area. Right there. His hand then comes out from under his armpit, empty-handed, guys. Do you see that? There's no more palm pistol. There's no more fist. He then puts the hand on the rail, leaps the rail, and comes to Charlie Kirk's aid. Now that you know what to look for, let's watch this video in regular speed.
We're not counting gang violence. Great.
Let's take a look at this at half speed.
We're not counting gang violence. Great.
It really, really looks like he's putting something in his sleeve there.
That man right there is the assassin. A 22-year-old kid is being railroaded by the government.
Okay, so that is a very interesting theory, and I'll give more of my thoughts on that later in the video. But first, I wanted to go over this other theory that I think is equally as intriguing, and then talk about both theories together when I go into detail about the camera crew and how they may have been working with the security team to help execute one of these two theories. Alright, so let's get into this second theory now.
John Bray says, based solely on my analysis of the two angles of the events on September 10th, I have come to the conclusion that this is the object that struck Charlie Kirk in the neck. So it's one of these kind of things, right? I use these. And that it's got a big magnet that keeps it connected. The wireless microphone with a rectangular magnetic clasp. The device has a 300 mAh battery that weighs 8 grams. So I wear these all the time. And so on that day, Charlie had the microphone mounted with the bulk of the device underneath his shirt. And there it is. It's underneath his shirt, right? The idea is that that microphone thing was rigged to explode and kill him. So
like the pagers that they had in Lebanon.
Like the pagers, very much like Israel did with those pagers and the people in Lebanon, and they bragged about doing it.
Okay, so this is a very interesting theory because if you watch the video I made in September about the shooting, I zoomed in on his neck and kept showing this on replay, trying to figure out what the heck it was, and asked the viewers to let us know in the comments if they had any idea. Now hearing what this guy says about it being a magnetic clasp that separated from the microphone after it exploded actually makes sense and serves as a valid explanation as to what it was that caused that pocket of air to surge through under Charlie's shirt.
Any electronic device with one of them batteries, they can make a bomb out of it.
This is the battery for the DJI Mic 2 transmitter that was underneath Charlie's shirt. This is an 8-gram, 300 mAh battery that's unique in that it's very easy to swap. A 2-gram charge of PETN would match the power of a 30-06 and leave 75% of the battery functional, undetectable. You can see the shock wave travel from the DJI mic outward. His neck and ears quake with the force, and his earpiece flies up as his body is slightly lifted from the explosion. His shirt deformation show a directed blast across his chest with the wave peeking around his neck. So the blast comes from here, and it's aimed this way, and you see his whole shirt come up as if there's a blast underneath his shirt. So let's watch. You see that, right?
Wow.
It's like this strange ripple through his shirt.
It's also a very, very compelling argument that it was his microphone pack underneath his shirt that blew up.
And let's look at the guy here who clipped Charlie's microphone onto his shirt. And of course, this guy may not have known anything about the mic being rigged, but the man who was responsible for setting up the audio may be. And who was that? Oh yeah, the guy in the gray shirt I highlighted on the first video about Charlie's shady security. You know, the sketchy guy who rushed to film the parking lot seconds after Charlie was shot, and then took down the camera directly behind Charlie during the shooting, just moments after Charlie was loaded into an SUV and rushed to the hospital. Judging by this guy's suspicious behavior, I think he needs to be investigated because I think he definitely knows something and could even be directly involved.
As the shockwave travels across his body, the magnetic clasp is flung across his body. In just a few frames, it disappears into his neck. The wound that appears is the same size as the clasp and displays flow patterns of a low velocity impact. So he's saying, so the right here, it blows up. This thing then flies across his shirt and hits him in the neck. It blows up. This thing then flies across his shirt and hits him in the neck. For all those things shown on the multiple camera angles, we don't see any indicators of high velocity impacts. We see a tremendous amount of energy expelled in an instant, but none of the evidence shows any high velocity splatter. A shaped charge, this is what a shaped charge is, enough to penetrate the skull.
Little bang is enough to penetrate the skull and destroy the contents.
Boom, a little bang. So that's what they're talking about, and that's what they're talking about here. The spoiler. Yeah.
But how would he know to time it with the rifle shot? Because the rifle was shot.
Right.
You got to coordinate that.
Well, remember those guys giving those third baseman hand signals?
Yes.
Wasn't that okay? Do it. Remember those guys giving those third baseman hand signals?
Yes.
Wasn't that okay? Do it.
So that's why the guy's giving hand signals behind him and not worried about getting hit by a 30-06.
Yes.
That's why.
So
that's why the guy's giving hand signals behind him and not worried about getting hit by a 30-06.
Yes.
That's why.
And that's exactly what I was questioning on my first video. Why was Charlie's bodyguard making all those weird motions with his arms and hands? Which makes sense if either of these two theories are true and he was indeed giving a signal. And if either of these theories are true, would also explain the odd security team's reaction to the shooting and help answer a question everyone has been asking that I don't think anyone has had an explanation for. But maybe I'll be able to provide one. So let's go ahead and cover the security crew's reaction now.
This is according to John Bray. Only an explosive event can explain what we witnessed. That event had an epicenter. That's exactly where his wireless microphone mounted under his shirt with the magnetic clasp. The chain and the magnetic clasp move at a high rate of speed away from the epicenter. It looked like the epicenter was right here on him, where that microphone was. That's where it's boom, and it goes this way. That would explain that. Where that microphone was. That's where it's boom, and it goes this way. That would explain that.
Okay, so now that we've been presented a couple interesting theories, maybe the security team's reaction will make more sense. Starting with the guy in the light plaid shirt, and the question we've all been asking, Why does he run and jump on the table and then slide off over Charlie's body? And then run off towards the parking lot. If he wanted to run to the parking lot, wouldn't it have been easier to go around the table to the left and run around the commotion en route to the parking lot instead of running directly through it? What was the purpose of that? So I think I may have an explanation. If either of these theories are true, whether the palm gun or exploding clip-on mic, then I believe he may have jumped on the table to grab some evidence. Maybe a fragment of a bullet or a piece of a shattered mic, neither of which we can see on this low resolution footage, but something that could be spotted by eyewitnesses. And then after hopping over Charlie's body, appears to be stuffing something into his pocket, which has left so many of us utterly perplexed. What in the heck is this guy putting in his pocket? And that's what makes me believe he grabbed some piece of evidence from the shooting/explosion and then casually stuffed his hand into his pocket, which then would make sense why he jumped on the table. And I know there doesn't appear to be any evidence on the table that we can see, and I agree, but you have to keep in mind that we're looking at very grainy footage, and we're not going to be able to see everything they can see. And it doesn't end there. If this wasn't suspicious enough, look at what this other guy's doing. Another member of the security crew just outside of the tent runs over aimlessly and for some reason jumps to the ground and then pops right back up to scurry away towards the parking lot. Alright, check it out and see what you think for yourself. I'll try to zoom in here so you can get a better look for yourself. As you can see, he throws himself to the ground. And now you can see he hops right back up and runs to the parking lot. What could possibly be the reason he did this? Is it possible he spotted a piece of evidence as I just explained? Maybe a bullet casing or a piece of Charlie's microphone? I don't know. I know it sounds crazy. But how do you explain this security guy jumping to the ground for seemingly no reason? Just to jump right back up and then run off. This was not an act of clumsiness. He did not trip. This was deliberate. It was intentional. Therefore, you explain why the heck he did this. What was he doing if he was not trying to retrieve a piece of evidence? I just cannot think of any other explanation. Also, that would explain why they paved over the ground of the shooting just days later. Because they were covering up any tiny fragments of evidence, whether it may have been a bullet or a piece of his clip-on lavalier microphones.
Yeah, that's an active crime scene that they're paving over. So now when a defense attorney gets hired, they can't go back to the crime scene and do their own investigation because it's been completely scrubbed.
Of course, I don't know this for sure, but there has to be some reason they paved over the crime scene. If you have a better theory for why they did that, let us know in the comment section.
The only explanation in my mind is that there's a bullet somewhere and that they can't go looking to find it and they don't want the police to find it. And it'd be awfully suspicious if they were digging around in the grass trying to take evidence away from the scene. Police have dogs that can sniff out bullets. And if there's a bullet that came from anywhere else that's not lodged in his neck, but actually exited his neck and is in the grass or in the pavers, I mean, if there's any kind of evidence from this, that would explain why they are redoing the entire crime scene.
And here's another question I have that doesn't make sense to me. Something I don't understand following the shooting, why are none of Charlie's security team taking cover? When someone is shot from a distance like that, people's knee-jerk reaction is to protect themselves from more potential shots fired. But that doesn't even seem to cross any of their minds. It's almost as if they somehow knew that there would be no more shots fired. But how could they possibly know that? Maybe because they already knew in advance what was going to transpire. Which begs the question, how much involvement did Charlie's security team play in all of this? Of course, I am not saying they all played a role in Charlie's execution, but I am saying that they should all be investigated in search of the truth. And I don't personally believe every member of Charlie's team was involved. But I do believe several of them may have possibly been directly involved, or at the very least, several knew about this oncoming assassination in advance, and indeed know who the guilty culprit is. Because I just do not believe the initial report that 22-year-old Tyler Robinson fired a kill shot to Charlie's neck from a rooftop 150 yards away. I just think Charlie's entire head would have been completely obliterated if that was the case.
Now, before we get started, one thing I want to say is it recently came out that the bullet did not have an exit hole. The doctor said he found it just beneath the skin. A 30-06 to the neck with no exit wound. That is very unlikely. So, today, we're gonna shoot a few different targets with the 30-06 and find out for ourselves how much damage this rifle round actually does. We are gonna use real meat and bone. And I would say each one of those pork shoulders is thicker than a human neck, and we have two of them with a massive bone in between them. So let's see what it does. I'm gonna try to aim right towards that bone. Okay, that literally knocked leaves off the trees. That was devastating. Okay, so this is the first pork shoulder that our 30-06 hit, and it did hit kind of towards the top, which is good. That is where I was aiming. Still a direct hit, and you can see that it went straight through that bone that is in the middle of that pork shoulder. So it went through that one, straight through the bone, came out the back right there. Didn't even really start to, do any damage. Then after it went through the first pork shoulder, it hit our femur bone. And the damage it did to this is absolutely diabolical. It just blew right through it, split it in half, and I don't even know where the other half is at. I did hear bone fragments raining down on the table. So maybe it just got completely exploded, but you can clearly see that that massive bone was not enough to stop the 30-06. It just blew right through it. And then surprisingly, at least to me, the second pork shoulder that was behind our femur bone is where the vast majority of that damage was done.
But they want us to believe that this exact same bullet hit Charlie in the neck, but only did this amount of damage.
We do have some bullet fragments on this one. I don't know if you can see that little piece of lead right there, but I mean, this one just absolutely got obliterated, and it did go through the bone in this one as well. So it went through all three bones, both pork shoulders and the femur that was in the middle, and still blasted right through this one. And then behind our meat and bone, we had these two 1-gallon water jugs, and this is the first one. It just blew through that one, no problem at all, which tells me that that bullet still had quite a bit of energy left on it. And then the second water jug right here has an entrance hole there, and I don't see an exit hole, and we actually have a good bit of that bullet inside our second water jug. And those are the fragments that I found in our second water jug. That actually just looks like copper jacket mostly, so I assume the lead bullet either broke apart or it could have curved and exited out one of the sides. Again, that is typically what rifle rounds do when they hit fleshy target.
And this is exactly what I was talking about. This is the only explanation I can think of to explain why certain members of Charlie's security crew were scrambling around the way they were. because they were grabbing fragments of evidence and then trying to play it off. What else could this guy be stuffing into his back pocket?
So even with all of that, we were still not able to fully stop this bullet, and hopefully this kind of shows you why people were so skeptical when they said there was no exit wound. With a 30-06, that is very hard to believe.
So now that we suspect Charlie's security crew is compromised, their nonchalant approach to aiding Charlie's wound starts to make a bit more sense. We'll go over that now, and then we'll get to the camera crew, who I think are equally suspicious.
We're going to go over this clip of all of the security guards who are supposedly treating Charlie, that no one has any blood on their hands at all. And I can tell you, as a guy who's literally treated gunshot wounds in combat myself, this is not a thing. This is probably the most suspicious. Everything I've seen, this drives me the most crazy.
And this footage is so grainy, but in case you couldn't tell, this guy on the far right in the brown plaid shirt is the same security guy that some suspect shot Charlie with a palm gun that we talked about earlier. So not exactly shock of the year that when that same guy runs to Charlie's aid, he doesn't really seem to help much.
As you watch this, guys, we're talking about a gunshot wound to the carotid artery. All of these guys.
And look at this guy in brown right here with the striped shirt.
Big old.
I mean, he's smiling. He's acting like he just opened a Christmas present here.
And I want you to watch it. Okay, we're handing things off, but as we're handing things off, no blood. No one has any blood on their hands. But as we're handing things off.
So you can clearly see one of the security crew extending a closed hand to another member, in which he seems to accept whatever contents are being placed in his hand before heading off in the opposite direction. My guess is that it's probably evidence. Just as I said before, either fragments of a bullet or possibly the remains from Charlie's clip-on microphone. As you can see, the suspicious activity of the security crew remain consistent.
They don't, the way they run around like they have something planned, but it's nothing they've ever seen. They don't know the hand signs. They're picking things up. And they said that what they see is premeditation, but they don't know what it is. And now this no blood thing and the looks on their faces like they're taking a Sunday walk. This is weird.
I was very suspicious about why we're not getting this high fidelity camera footage from right behind Charlie Kirk. And now I want to know, show me that footage. Because that footage is going to show me exactly what you're doing to treating Charlie Kirk. Tell me why, turning point, no one treated Charlie Kirk. No one tried to stop the bleeding. You can see it right here. No blood on anyone's hands. Weird things being passed off. Bizarre. Absolutely bizarre.
Okay, look. I think I just caught something that I haven't heard anyone else mention before. Okay, so I read several comments on my previous video that Charlie's bodyguard was wearing meta glasses.
I was just surprised that this already can start to make you see how smart glasses can do a lot of the things that your phone can do, but better. So they have the same basic hardware, like the camera, which can now record in 2.5 times the resolution, like the 2 speakers, 1 for each ear, and no less than 5 microphones.
What Meta has to show me is actually shockingly advanced. But I'm fairly confident that the #1 use of these by far is to use the built-in cameras to record POV videos. First and foremost, you can obviously see the UI of the glasses instead of just relying entirely on voice commands.
Now, of course, we don't know for fact his bodyguard is wearing meta glasses, but it definitely seems like he is, because it would explain why he looks like he is constantly processing information.
The #1 use of these by far is to use the built-in cameras to record POV videos.
So I don't really think it's that controversial to assume he does indeed have meta glasses on, which explains why he kept tapping his glasses throughout the event. And I honestly didn't think much of it while making the previous security crew video. But now that I just noticed this, while they were supposed to be aiding Charlie, it really made me believe he's wearing meta glasses, because look at this. While he's down, supposed to be trying to help save Charlie's life, he's got his hand on his glasses. So while Charlie is lying on the ground bleeding out and every microsecond counts, you need to adjust your glasses? Even though they were fit snug to your face, they weren't falling off, but for some reason you needed to adjust them while Charlie's fighting for his life. No, this guy had to have been wearing meta glasses and filming Charlie's dying body. For some reason, that was his top priority. This is absolute insanity.
So I'm not willing to say this is nefarious, but I am willing to say nobody tried to save his life. I'm 100% confident in that. I can watch it right here in front of me. And then the question is why? There's an argument to be made that because he got shot in the carotid, potentially if the heart got impacted somehow and it stopped immediately, all the blood would have already evacuated out of his body before he got moved. Okay, let's say hypothetical that's the case. There's still no blood anywhere on any of these people that supposedly treated him. Why is nobody, Alex, when you're talking about a carotid artery injury, what I'm doing immediately when I roll up on somebody and they've got an arterial wound, I'm burying my hands inside of that wound before. Nobody's taking a shirt off. Nobody's getting gauze. Like, you don't have gauze? Get a shirt off. Give me some clothes. I need to pack that wound.
And by the way, even low-level, not very well-trained security knows to jam gauze or clothing into a wound.
Or at least your thumb. Get your thumbs down in there and actually stop the bleeding if you can until you can get somebody to bring you help. But I can tell you, I watched this clip, none of that was done. So are these guys, they just had no trauma medicine experience? None of these guys that are his personal security have ever done trauma medicine? I teach trauma medicine courses, Alex. And this is just not.
But let's look at the body language of these guys. Their faces. I mean, I would show more concern flipping an omelet to make sure I didn't burn it. I'm not trying to be mean here. I'm watching body language. They look like it's funny.
These guys have no idea.
Yeah, what about adrenaline? I mean, I know even a wimpy guy, their buddy gets blasted like this. They'd have shoulders flared out. They'd be shaking. You'd see really serious faces, teeth bared. I mean, I know what people look like under a car wreck or anything, but people are like, I don't see the battlefield, like this thing. I don't see any of this.
I don't have a lot of time to save this person's life, right? I don't have time to mess around and be handing shit off and just willy-nilly whatever I'm doing. Like, I would immediately have both my hands inside Charlie's neck, both my thumbs, identify where this laceration is in the carotid. My thumbs are on it, and I would be screaming at the guy next to me to take his shirt off so that we can bury something inside of his neck.
Well, exactly. I've never been in combat like you, but I watched documentaries in Iraq, Vietnam, all of it, and talked to family members. You see that, people screaming, people yelling, even experienced medics, they care. It's a totally different, it's like this. Instead, these guys are like,
and again, I'm not the type of person to say, oh, this is nefarious, but I can watch that clip and you can watch that clip. And I'm sure everybody at home, even if you've ever done trauma medicine or not, listening to me explain it, now watching this is going to go, what the fuck? What are you guys doing? Even if it's not nefarious, negligence is serious here. Not that I think that they could have potentially saved his life.
Multiple people are smiling.
I was so glad to find this interview here because they reiterated everything I was thinking. Why the lack of urgency? Why is there no blood on their hands? Why do they look like they're subtly handing things off to one another? It was just not what you would expect from a professional security team. Okay, so now we're going to finally look at the camera crew that I brought up at the start of the video and a third potential shooter. Okay, so this is a screenshot just seconds before the shooting. On the far left of the screen, you see 3 camera crew. 2 guys up top who I want to be the primary focus, and then secondarily the girl here who I just wanted to showcase her reaction after the shooting. Also, the student on the mic asking Charlie about transgender shootings. I recently made a video on him and why I suspect that he knew of the shooting in advance. I'll leave a link on the outro if you want to check it out, as well as a link to the first video I made about Charlie's security crew. Okay, so over this next 4-second clip, Charlie will pick up the mic and ask, counting or not counting gang violence. Then as soon as he puts the mic down, he gets shot. And that's when I'll pause the video, and then I'm going to slow it down on the replay. And I want you to pay attention to the activity on the left side of Charlie. starting with his bodyguard and then the camera crew to the far left. All right, let's check it out. Okay, so you may not be able to tell because I froze it so fast, but Charlie has just been shot. But it's blurred out and all you can really see is his shirt fly up. So this is what I'm going to replay to make my point for this segment, and hopefully the video won't get age restricted since I don't show any blood. So now we're going to watch the same clip, but we're going to zoom in on Charlie and his bodyguard.
Remember those guys giving those third baseman hand signals?
Yes.
Wasn't that okay? Do it. Remember those guys giving those third baseman hand signals?
Yes.
Wasn't that okay? Do it.
Okay, so pay close attention to the cameraman on the far left. And he looks to be in sync with the hand signals from the bodyguard and just so happens to snap a photo just as Charlie was shot. Let's check it out. All right, now let's cut out the middleman and see how this looks. And I know you probably didn't notice, but part of the lens separated right after Charlie was shot. Obviously, it's normal for camera lenses to focus or widen, but for his lens to sink down like that right when a bullet was fired is suspicious. And no, this is not just him tilting the camera at an angle. He's holding the body of the camera steady as the lens opens. The front half of the lens sinks down while the other half doesn't move, which makes me wonder if that lens may possibly be the barrel of a gun.
He gives the hand signal. So there's the guy. So they're saying that that guy took the shot. They say he's got one of these guns. And it certainly looks like he might. These two guys working together. So there's the shot. And here's the guy. Does the guy look, does he look freaked out? Does he look weirded out? Does he look like he just witnessed an assassination? No, he looks like he's calmly walking backwards. Why would he keep the camera like that? Why would he keep it like that and walk backwards? That's not how I wouldn't imagine that's how a person would react if they just watched the shooting 5 feet in front of them. They would keep their camera at waist high and walk backwards like this, like it's a gun, because that's how he's holding it, like it's a gun. There's the guy. So the shot went off. You saw that guy flinch. But he doesn't flinch at all. He doesn't flinch at all. Isn't that weird? He doesn't flinch at all. This guy flinched. And then he walks backwards.
And he turns and he walks away from a crime scene. He's not running.
Why wouldn't he continue to take pictures of a crime scene? Why wouldn't he still take pictures? Why would he walk? He walks backwards. He doesn't turn around and run and get the hell out of there. He walks back really suspicious-like. So there's the bullet, by the way. So you see this little spot right here? So you see this little white spot right here?
Yeah.
They're saying that's the bullet. And it comes and hits him that way. And it's that guy with that gun camera that's doing this. Let's watch. So there's the bullet.
You were meant to see this public execution. You were meant to see it.
Oh, definitely. Oh,
so
this
there's
was
no way they didn't plan ahead to have at least 3 or 4 valid possibilities to your eye.
That's right.
Of who might have done it.
Yes, I actually agree with him and plan on making a follow-up video to go over which theory I'm leaning towards. So if you're interested in that, be sure to subscribe.
So the shot went off. You saw that guy flinch, but he doesn't flinch at all. He doesn't flinch at all. Isn't that weird? He doesn't flinch at all. This guy flinched.
The man Jimmy Dore is pointing to in the white hat who flinched after the gunshot is Frank Turek, who is a Christian apologist and was a biblical mentor to Charlie Kirk. And to be honest, is about the only one on Charlie's team who seemed to have a normal reaction to a shooting. Now, some people think Frank knew about it as well, and of course that's possible, but I don't personally think Frank had anything to do with this. He seemed to be the only one who reacted the way you'd expect someone caught up in a shooting to react. Get down low and get to safety because you are anticipating more shots to come. But as I've said, no one on Charlie's security crew bothered to take cover. No one assessed the area to deem safe. Isn't that protocol for a professional security team to do in the event of a shooting like this? But they didn't need to assess the situation because they already knew it was safe and no more shots were coming. And the camera crew also didn't react as if there was any danger. And as Jimmy said, the guy pointing the camera at Charlie didn't even flinch when the gunshot went off. And that brings me to the third camera crew member that I wanted to talk about. The girl in the red MAGA hat. This girl looks to be 19, 20 years old. So how do you think a 19, 20-year-old girl would react to an insanely intense and petrifying shooting like this? You'd think she'd scream in horror, then take cover, scurry away with tears drenching her face in fear. Alright, so let's see her reaction. So, as you can see here, Frank is taking cover on the ground, and although this footage is extremely blurry, if you look at the top of the screen, you can actually see Charlie's limp body falling out of his chair. And as Charlie's body crashes to the ground, MAGA girl just casually strolls by. No fear, no panic, just nonchalantly stepping away from this murder scene, with seemingly no concern for her own safety. She even looks like she may have cracked a slight grin. I know the footage is blurry, but she does appear to be smiling. So you're telling me this is normal? There is no way this camera crew did not know about this in advance. They may have even been in on the setup. If this had been an uncoordinated shooting, this girl would not know about it and would be freaking the F out right now, instead of nonchalantly strolling by with what appears to be a slight smile on her face. And even though the footage is grainy, you can tell Frank is panicked and she is smiling. All of these people, with the exception of Frank, but everyone else, the security team, the camera crew, all of them are shady AF.